Patrick Conn. Follow me on Twitter at PatSportsGuy, or the show Locked On Horns. Just want to remind you this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Head on over to BuiltBar.com. Use that promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON, for 20% off your next order. It was a wild and crazy week for the Texas Longhorns heading into the Alamo Bowl. We got to see Sam Ehlinger start his final game for the Texas Longhorns. He is now opted towards heading towards the NFL draft, so he is out. That means we will have a quarterback battle in our hands in 2021. Casey Thompson, Hudson Carter, the two that are expected. We also have a freshman coming in this year. Charles Wright will be the freshman, so that's the three quarterbacks that are currently the scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. You also have Ben Ballard, who has been here. He finally got some time in the Alamo Bowl. But it was a crazy week, mostly because Tom Herman was let go as the head coach at the University of Texas. This coming just 3 weeks after Texas Athletic Director Chris Del Conte put out a statement in which he said he's our coach. And if you paid attention to anything that we've said right here on Locked On Longhorns, anything that we've said on Longhorns Wire, nobody bought into that. Or at least I didn't. He said he's our coach. How long did that mean? Till after your players sign their letter of intent? That seems to be the case, because just days after that statement, they signed their class. Most of them anyway. Still one remaining from the original ones that were expected. There's still about 9 spots left to be filled in the upcoming recruiting class. But now Tom Herman is out. And no surprise to me. And the reason why is I thought something had to change. When you look at everything that was involved, the losses, you can just look at this year alone. Losses to Iowa State when you had the lead. Lost to TCU, to an unranked TCU football team when you were a top 10 program. The following week, they lost to Oklahoma in a game that they needed another miraculous comeback like they did against Texas Tech just to force overtime. Down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. In a year that Oklahoma was supposed to be down, that was the case. They were down, and Texas struggled with that. And so when you look at everything involved, they had to make a change. Tom Herman had 7 losses since he became the head coach at the University of Texas to unranked opponents. That's the most in FBS. That was a problem. And reports are that it wasn't just the head coach, Tom Herman, the head coach, that was the problem. It was Tom Herman, the leader. If you listen to the broadcast for the Alamo Bowl, ESPN mentioned a story about Sam Ehlinger questioning Tom Herman, asking if they were going to push the throttle or be conservative, in which Tom Herman allegedly responded, players will play, coaches will coach. But that right there is an issue, because there's a reason why people were calling Tom Herman Turtle Tom. When he got a lead late in the game, instead of pushing the throttle and leaving no doubt, he would get conservative. He would become a turtle. They would slow things down. That became an issue. That was a huge issue and a big reason why. Recruiting. There were 2 things Tom Herman could not do this year, or had to do this year. Hold on to Quinn Ewers, who committed to the University of Texas, and get into the Big 12 championship, and he accomplished neither of those things. And that became a huge issue for Texas, for the big money donors, for the administration. Frustration levels grew, and following the loss to Oklahoma, they lost Quinn Ewers. Just weeks after he committed to play at the school that he grew up rooting for, much like Sam Ehlinger did. And now Quinn Ewers is off to Ohio State. Alabama is another school that has just been coming into the state of Texas and taking top talent. Tommy Brockermeyer, James Brockermeyer. You could also Jalen Milroe, who was a Texas commit, and they flipped him. The timing of it had to do a lot with Quinn Ewers, but now you have neither quarterback. And Jalen Milroe was one of the top in the state. And he's gone. And so the failings in recruiting, you're seeing it. 3 straight recruiting classes in the top 10. This one's going to be outside the top 10. They could possibly get inside the top 15 depending on who they sign over the next month as the second national signing day will approach in February. That was a big issue, a huge issue. And so recruiting was failing. You were failing on the field. So what exactly were you bringing to the table? Because the answer to that is not much. And that was a huge problem. And that is why Tom Herman had to be let go as the head coach at the University of Texas. Massive issue and something that they had to take care of. Now you bring in Steve Sarkeesian. And we're going to get into that more in a moment. But, this isn't his first rodeo. This will be his third stint as a head coach. And we'll get into whether that's a lateral move or not, depending on how you feel about it. For me, it's not, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But the issues that Tom Herman had, holding on to a Herb Hand. He made wholesale changes to the staff, but Herb Hand remained. And Herb Hand wasn't able to recruit offensive linemen. That was a big issue. And you were seeing it in this class as well. And now Herb Hand has said that he is gone. Yancey McKnight is gone. Mike Yurcich is likely gone, with some of the names that are being floated about as coming to the University of Texas. And we'll get into that much later on some of the other names and people to keep an eye on. It's an unfortunate part of the business, but it is a business, and these players understand. And if you talk to them, most of them agreed, hey, it's a business, but we didn't commit to Tom Herman. We committed to the University of Texas. And so you have to like what you hear out of that, because anytime that there's a coaching change made in the middle of a recruiting cycle, those are things that are likely going to happen. You're going to lose guys. They're going to go elsewhere. So it's part of the business. But coming up next, let's talk a little bit about Steve Sarkeesian and what this means. But first, I want to ask you if you're ready for some more football. College football championship game is coming up. Huge matchup. Do you want to put money on Alabama or Ohio State? It's going to be a massive matchup. And, of course, you got playoffs coming up for the NFL. Going to be starting this week. There's only one place that's got you covered and one place that we trust. That's betonline.ag. Sign up today for a free account. Go to betonline.ag. Use that promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for your 50% welcome bonus. Not only that, Heisman odds. Who's going to win? Who's going to finish first, second, third? All the odds right there on that website. So don't sit on the sideline anymore. Get in on the action. Don't forget to use that promo code Locked On to receive 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Bet Online, your online sportsbooks experts. So we have this issue with bringing in Steve Sarkeesian. And some will look at that and say, that feels like a lateral move. But is it really? Tom Herman was dubbed an offensive genius when he was at Ohio State. He did some good things at Houston. He was the hot name, and Texas brought him in. We saw the results. I didn't see the offensive genius. Could that be who he was playing? Putting players like Bijan Robinson, 101 touches this year, 899 yards, but he played less snaps than everybody. What about a Jared Wiley? Outperformed Cade Brewer, but yet Cade Brewer is the one that was getting all the snaps. Similar receptions, but Wiley was about 10 yards more per reception. But to go back to my point about Bijan Robinson, he led the team in yards after contact per touch, yards after the catch, yards after the catch per touch or per reception. That's the problem. He wasn't utilizing his talent. Now you bring in Steve Sarkeesian. That's a different level. For all intents and purposes, and everybody that we've talked to discussed about Steve Sarkeesian, elite offensive mind. What's the one issue Texas has had over the years? Quarterback development. Not since Colt McCoy has Texas put a quarterback in the NFL that's really done anything. Vince Young before him. Since then, nothing. And now you bring in Steve Sarkeesian. He is known for working with first-round quarterbacks. At USC, he worked with Matt Leinart. At Washington, he worked with Jake Locker. When he went back to USC, he worked with Cody Kessler. What about Tua Tagovailoa? Mac Jones? These are some of the names of the quarterbacks that he's worked with. Mac Jones was a 3-star composite, 50th ranked player, according to 24/7 Sports, out of his own state. Now, what did he do? Oh, he was a Heisman frontrunner. So that just shows you Steve Sarkeesian is going to change the offense to match the players on the field. Not only that, he's going to put his best players on the field. Najee Harris was one of his best running backs. He made sure to feed him. And he was the premier back. He was the feature back. Devonta Smith, he found ways to get him the ball. Over 100 touches this year as a receiver. He made sure to get him the ball. And he did plenty with Jalen Waddle. There are names up and down. He has talent there. What does Texas have? They have talent. According to 24/7 composite team rankings, not just recruiting, but overall team talent, Texas was number 5 in the country, and yet they failed to reach expectations. With Steve Sarkeesian, he's going to have that. There's two sides of the ball, but we're going to focus on offense because that is where he is the best. So looking at what he can do, I think there's a lot there. And when you look at Sam Ehlinger's gone, now it's Casey Thompson. And we saw what Casey Thompson could do when you let him loose in the Alamo Bowl, scoring 38 points in the second half. 31 of it came from Casey Thompson. He played 9 minutes of actual game time to score that. Multiple drives under a minute. There was explosion. We saw that. He did the one thing that Sam Ehlinger struggled through all year. That's throwing consistently down the field. Is it a small sample size? Yes, it is. But those are things that we haven't necessarily seen. And when you saw how the offense struggled in the first half with Sam Ehlinger as the quarterback, and of course they did take Bijan Robinson off the field for most of that first half, giving him only really 3 drives out of the 8 that they ran where Bijan Robinson was involved. And what did he do when he was involved? Big plays. I mean, he touched the ball 12 times in that game and had over 200 total yards, 220 to be exact, 3 touchdowns. Those are the explosive plays you get. Casey Thompson's efficient. He threw the ball 10 times in that game. Completed 8, 4 touchdowns. That's what you get with Casey Thompson. You get efficiency. And maybe they weren't going to go to him without an injury, but what he proved is that he should be in line to be the first man to get a shot at the quarterback job in 2021. And now you bring in Steve Sarkeesian, who, when you watch his quarterback play, you have to like that. And what can he do with a Casey Thompson? Mac Jones was more your traditional stand in the pocket guy. That's not so much the case with Casey. He can run, but he doesn't have to. He can maneuver in the pocket, and we saw it. The things that he does is he throws with touch. He throws with anticipation, so there's a lot of excitement there. Now, the excitement with Steve Sarkeesian is going to be in the recruiting game. He does so well on the West Coast. He has a lot of ties there. What does that mean for Texas? They can continue to go to the West Coast to get talent. Bijan Robinson, Jake Smith, Braden Liebrock, all come out of Arizona. Steve Sarkeesian could go right out to the West Coast. Jameer Johnson, they signed him, cornerback, out of California. He has those ties, and they can continue to go out there. But he also has to win Texas. Now, can a guy without Texas ties do that? Well, he is the one responsible for flipping Jalen Milroe. So I'd like to think that he's going to do well. And when he goes into a quarterback's house, and speaks to the parents and speaks to the player, he's got a long list of quarterbacks that he's worked with getting to the NFL that he can bring that experience to. It's a great selling point. Not to mention that Devonta Smith, wide receiver, is likely to win the Heisman. If you look at the betting odds on betonline.ag, that's an important part because he can say, look, the Heisman has been a quarterback award for years. I won it with a wide receiver. Not only that, I had 3 of the top 5 finalists on my team. That's a selling point, and that's a huge selling point. And I think that's why there's a level of excitement with Steve Sarkeesian coming to Texas. Maybe people don't like it because they think it's a lateral move. I don't agree with that because Steve Sarkeesian has had experience, and what he did at Washington was commendable. He took over a team that was 0-12. Now, USC, you could say it fell apart, but working with Nick Saban seems to have turned that around. And Nick Saban spoke with me today. He gave him high praise about as a hard worker and how he works with everybody, and I think that is going to serve him well at Texas, and that's why a lot of people, including me, are excited about this. But let's talk about some of those names in just a moment as far as what coaches could potentially be coming. But first, I want to tell you about Built Bar. It's an improved Built Bar, making it even more delicious. 18 amazing flavors. My favorite, lemon almond cheesecake. But then there's always the originals, the peanut butter bar. How about mint brownie, toffee almond, peanut butter brownie? Anytime you put peanut butter in a bar, I'm excited about it. These bars are covered in 100% chocolate, soft and easy to chew. There's no chalky aftertaste. You don't have to wash it down with a gallon of water. And right now, with New Year's resolutions, people are trying to get healthy, get fit. Yours and your present company included, trying to do that, trying to get more active. One of the great things is Built Bar is a healthy alternative to your typical energy bars. And they taste great. It's great for the health-conscious guy. You can lose or maintain your weight. Great for the keto diet. I mean, we're talking, if you look at the peanut butter bar, 19 grams of protein, 180 calories, 5 grams of sugar, 5 grams of net carbs. So you're not getting all that other stuff in there with you. So what you got to do, go to BuiltBar.com. Use that promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, to get 20% off your next order. Again, use that promo code LOCKEDON for 20% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, so coming up on tomorrow's show, we're going to get more into this Casey Thompson, Hudson Card, who's going to be the quarterback to come out of the battle on 2021. Now that we know that Sam Ehlinger is out and he's heading towards the NFL. But the thing that's always going to be important, we talked about at the top of the show, is going to be the coaching changes. Who's he bringing in? Who's going out? We do know Herb Hand is gone. Yancey McKnight, strength and conditioning coach, out as well. Pete Thamel of Yahoo Sports reported that this morning. Those two are out. Mike Yurcich is likely out. Who could replace him? Well, the name that we're hearing most often as far as offensive coordinators is Kyle Flood. Kyle Flood is currently the offensive line coach at Alabama. Oh, by the way, Alabama's offensive line just won the Joe Moore Award, given to the best offensive line. Not only that, the Legacy twins that everybody thought were going to the University of Texas suddenly changed their mind and went to Alabama. Tommy Brockermeyer, James Brockermeyer. Having Flood is going to help prevent future offensive linemen from choosing to go to an Alabama and Ohio State. Those two seem to be the most prominent schools that come into Texas and have been able to recruit very well. Kyle Flood is going to help that. Even as the offense coordinator, he may be the offense coordinator, but I'm fairly certain that he won't be calling plays. That will be Steve Sarkeesian. But what Kyle Flood can do is improve the offensive line. And that is a massive selling point for Kyle Flood coming to Texas. Other reports that we've heard, a Will Muschamp, could he potentially come back? Latest reports are that he has declined an offer to come back. He likely would have been the defensive coordinator, which means that Coleman Hutzler would remain as linebacker coach. They worked together at South Carolina and Florida as well before Hutzler came to Texas to join Chris Ash's staff. Chris Ash is a guy that I'd want to keep. Just when you saw how well that the defense played down the stretch, it wasn't pretty early, but it got a lot better as the season went on. Another name that we've heard is going to be staying is the running back coach, Stan Drayton. That's huge because there's L.J. Johnson out of Cypress Fair who they are trying to recruit. And he's a big selling point. Stan Drayton, one of the most, I guess you would say, one of the most respected running back coaches. Last year alone, we heard 2 NFL teams, including the Dallas Cowboys, were interested in bringing Stan Drayton to their team. Stan Drayton has been credited for the work that he did with Ezekiel Elliott, among other running backs. But Elliott has spoken publicly about the credit that he gave to him and making him a better football player. Better understanding the job. And I know he has a great relationship with Bijan Robinson, who they want to try and keep happy because they saw what a weapon he could be when he gets playing time. And so the relationship with Stan Drayton is going to help immensely. There was talks about Todd Banks from Alabama, and I don't think they're going to get a ton of coaches from Alabama, but obviously Kyle Flood is the one to keep in mind. Chris Ash, I think, just to go back to that point, I think he needs to be kept as well. I think he's vitally important, as well as the linebacker coach and Coleman Hutzler. And we'll find out. Some of the other names that we've heard. Barry Odom, defensive coordinator at Alabama, is another name to consider. He is a fantastic defensive coordinator, and you saw the work that he did at Arkansas this year, and to bring him to Texas would only enhance this team. So let's close with this. I want to go back to a conversation we were having in that second segment about Steve Sarkeesian. Quarterback play is going to be huge. It's going to be vital. But I think more than anybody, Bijan Robinson is going to benefit immensely from having Steve Sarkeesian as the offensive coordinator. Like we said, Najee Harris, 200 touches. In the last 2 seasons, he's had 200 plus. If you extrapolate the numbers that Bijan Robinson had, the 200 carries, 200 touches, very similar to the numbers that Najee Harris had last season. You're talking 12 touchdowns and 1,600 yards. That's the level of play that you can get with Bijan Robinson. Just remind you, he just set a Texas school record for having 8.2 yards per carry, 8.9 yards per touch. That's a guy you need to get the ball in his hand. The explosive plays, and he just changes the entire dynamic, because if you're so worried about Bijan breaking those big plays, well, guess what? That's only going to open things up. And with Steve Sarkeesian's offense, the way that he likes to change things up, the way that he likes to attack the perimeter, double moves across the middle, that's where Jake Smith will benefit immensely. Oh, by the way, Joshua Moore is going to be back. He was their leading receiver as far as touchdowns were concerned. Well, they got to figure out what they're going to do on the other side. Well, Kelvontae Dixon showed that he could be a little bit of a weapon on that 73-yard catch and run. Oh, Jordan Whittington. Troy Omier, he tore his ACL prior to the season, and he would have been a big weapon. He, much like Brennan Eagles, 6'4" guy, huge catch radius. Maybe he's more reminiscent of a Colin Johnson the way that he caught the ball. Not going to compare the two, because Colin Johnson was a class of his own. But that is where we're looking at with this offense under Steve Sarkeesian. There's going to be a lot to discuss, and we're going to get into it more throughout the week. So make sure you're checking out the Locked On Longhorns podcast as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But that's going to do it for me. We'll catch y'all tomorrow.